My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today is Ariel Seidman, who is the CEO and co-founder over at Hivemapper. Great to have you back.
Great to see you again, Paul. Thank you for having me.
So you guys get a chance to really do a lot within Breakpoint. We saw a full rundown. We did 4 shows on all of the days of Breakpoint. If you guys did not check them out, make sure and go back to our YouTube channel. You'll see all sorts of great content from, of course, Breakpoint and what was happening at Solana. Ariel, let's get into a little bit about where you guys have been since the last 6 months. The last time we interviewed you, it was, almost 5 months ago. I was looking at the video right there. 5 months ago, rolling out, we had you guys on for the first time. What has been done in that period of time?
A lot. So let's see. So we are about to hit 6 million unique road kilometers mapped. So that's, to put that into context, that's about 10% of the world's roads mapped in about 11 months. Okay, so probably one of the fastest, if not one of the fastest growing maps out there. So that's number one. That's incredible, all testament to this incredible community that we have all over the world. So that was the Dashcams is really the eyes of the network, right? And so that's these Dashcams driving around. We now have this thing called Map AI, and you can think of that as the brain. So once you have the imagery, you need to then extract relevant information from that imagery. That is what we refer to as the Map AI pipeline. And so what do I mean by the brains? They're saying, okay, that's a 25 mile per hour speed limit sign, and it's located precisely here. That's a no turn restriction. That's precisely located here. So we have all of these contributors, and we gave them these really fun games to play. And what they're effectively doing is training our AI to get better and better and better. So we get more accurate results from, okay, that's a 25 mile per hour speed limit sign, and it's precisely at that location, or turn restriction signs. All of the information that you see every single day, that's what that Map AI system is doing. So since we last chatted, I think that was a very, very nascent at the time. I'm not even so sure we had formally announced it. And so that has been off to the races, tens of millions of reviews by many, many, many thousands of contributors all over the world. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to buy a dash cam, or you don't even have to drive. You can just be sitting behind your computer and playing those Map AI trainer games. So that's number 2. Number 3 is probably the most exciting, is that there are now customers integrating the Map AI data into their platform. These are brand name customers. If I told you who they were, I can't share that with you, unfortunately. But if I told you who they were, you would definitely recognize the names. So those are the 3 big kind of areas of improvement since we last chatted.
All right, so a lot accomplished in a short period of time. And we've been testing some of the devices here in our studio. Obviously the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach area maps we've got here on screen. But we ended up, the stats were 17,000 honey mapped since May. And this was mostly with one of our researchers going from like Miami to the Broward County area. So we've been pretty impressed with it. When you look at the growth of the market, obviously I'm showing, the South Florida map there in general that you guys have on Hivemapper. How's the growth been for you? Do you feel like you're on track? Do you feel like there's still areas that you need growth in, and are there some super growth areas that you can talk to?
Yeah, so we just launched this new capability called Bursts. And what that really now allows us to do is target very, very specific locations and say, boom, if you map in this specific intersection or this specific neighborhood, you will earn a little bit more honey. And so what that does is 2 things that's really powerful. One is it allows you to fill in the gaps, right? So to your point, little off neighborhood that maybe very few people ever go down, or this intersection that we didn't get a good, angle on, or whatever the issue is, Burst allows us to solve those problems and do it in a very, very scalable way. And wow, do those things work? So that's number 1. Number 2 is freshness, right? So now what we're seeing is customers coming to us and saying, look, I love that you have a map of San Francisco or a map of Miami or New York or London or wherever it may be. But what I really also need in addition to that is these, let's say 700 locations, and I need to see them 2 or 3 or 4 times per week. And so what bursts allow you
Okay.
to do is make sure that you're not just getting, the map. For some customers, it's great. Like if you have the map from like 3 months ago or even a month ago, that's amazing relative to what they have today. But there's a whole other set of use cases where they really need that freshness cadence to be 2 or 3 or 4 times per week.
When you look
So
at,
that's the other thing that's with us. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Well, I think the fact that, first of all, brilliant idea, because I think the kind of that accelerant of being able to get a lot more granular data in some of these very highly specific areas that's something. I don't think there's any other mapping system out there that does that. It's almost like map as a service type thing. So
Exactly.
kudos to you guys.
So, like Tesla can't be like, hey guys, we need you to go here or there because we're missing certain parts of our map, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have no ability to do that. And so with Hivemapper, you get not only the great base map, right? That's constantly improving, constantly expanding, constantly refreshing, but then you get Burst, what allows you to do this kind of very targeted specific. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Ariel, so why not get this into an OEM type setup, at the manufacturer level to where these are installed in cars at some point to really kind of accelerate this whole idea of constant, always on mapping, always updating with real life traffic, real life, OEM vehicles out there? Why not go that direction?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, look, yes, that is definitely like an area that, is an area of focus and investment for us. Absolutely. And I also think that you'll want this kind of community-based mapping, right? Where you can then target specific locations, right? Like if you just install it in a car, like we would prefer delivery trucks, frankly, right? So like a delivery truck type would be a lot better than just like a 4-door sedan. But even if we were to do that, we would still want this amazing community because of what we just talked about, right? Being able to target specific neighborhoods, target specific locations, and to have a very engaged and responsive community is critical. So you really want the best of both of those things.
Yeah, I look at I think the titans in the industry. You look at what Super Cruise is doing with Chevy, just to give you an example of their map right there. But you also have Tesla, which is mostly, this was something I was learning, in prepping for today's call, is I didn't realize that Tesla wasn't using a mapping service. I thought they had a mapping service, but in reality, they're utilizing their own camera systems to basically do real-time mapping all the time. Why not use a service like Hivemapper or others out there? I don't understand why they have to be using it for certain things, especially for the real-time traffic.
I mean, look, they definitely use a map. So like there's two things that Tesla uses, right? One is the map that you and I use. I don't have a Tesla, but if you own a Tesla, the map that you can just look at as a human, that is all Google Maps, right? And they pay, Google Maps a lot for that. And there's a different map that the Tesla vehicle full self-driving capability also uses. It is not what is referred to as a high definition map, but there is certainly a map that they're using to figure out, okay, like, when is the exit coming up, right? When is the intersection coming up? And so they're combining that data with the perception system to then make decisions.
Yeah. Do you think with the ability of if you look at Cruise, you look at Tesla, I mean, how do they stand up to the opportunity here for what Hivemapper really represents? Is this something that you feel companies like them would start to adopt some of this technology from what you guys are doing?
Yeah, look, ADAS, so the Super Cruise is effectively ADAS, or what is commonly referred to as ADAS, which is kind of advanced driver systems capabilities. And we think we have a great capability in Hivemapper, and the reason for that is freshness, right? Kind of this idea that let's say there's construction coming up, and so you all of a sudden you have a highway that's going from 3 lanes or 4 lanes down to 1 or 2. It would be very advantageous, right, for a Super Cruise to know where it exactly started and where that construction ends, right? Or boom, this exit over here, you can't do it because it's closed between these hours, right? And so that capability that we have in terms of just always knowing the freshness is something that is very unique in the industry. And that, yes, absolutely, over time, we would definitely love to work and engage with a lot of these different providers.
Had a chance to see some just amazing ideas coming out of Breakpoint. along with a lot of interoperability, composability, of course, functionality. When you look at Solana, obviously you guys tied into Solana for many of our viewers out there and listeners may not necessarily fully be aware of it. But how helpful will this be is the composability of Solana's network?
Well, look, I think from a Solana perspective, it is amazing that you have all of these, what's referred to as decentralized physical incentive networks, right? So we're one of them in the mapping space. Helium is another in the wireless space.
Yeah.
You have render networks, right? And so what that means is you have a lot of people who are builders, right? And so they want to figure out, okay, how can I participate in render? How can I participate in Hivemapper? How can I participate in Helium? And so you already have this amazing audience, right? And they're already set up on Solana. They already have the wallets. They already have the capability. They already understand everything. And so, just from a acquisition perspective, it just makes our lives a lot easier, right? And we kind of all help each other and we all support each other. And the other thing I'll say about Solana, and I've kind of just been saying this, the thing that you really want from a blockchain is as somebody who's building out this map, you want low cost, right? And you also want low headache. Right. Like if you're always thinking about it, then it's kind of probably not doing its job. And so, yeah. And so the fact that we don't think about it a lot is actually a positive in our view, right? Because it is so low cost, it's fast, it's reliable, and it's easy to use. So it's what else could you ask for?
AI possibilities in terms of render actually being able to use that compute power that render has already and is going to eventually grow to. What's the opportunity there for Hivemapper and render to possibly, kind of intersect there?
There's a lot. I mean, I think it's, compute and storage is a significant cost. And so we're always looking for better alternatives on that front. And render is one of the major players out there. And so, yeah, super interesting to us.
What about Teleport? Teleport also, that we saw them last year. They've made some advancements this year. I don't know if you got a chance to see them. For some of our viewers, Teleport, kind of think of them as the Web3 Uber, out there.
Yeah.
What about opportunities there? Because obviously that's one of the biggest challenges. I think that's also one of the biggest benefits of Uber is they have all of this data around mapping, which they've been doing for a very, very long time. Obviously, Teleport could be another opportunity with this kind of integration.
Yeah. No, I think that this whole idea of that there's this set of, participants, these builders, these creators, right? So a driver who's on Teleport, an obvious thing that they're going to then say is, wait, I need a dash cam, both from a reliability and a safety perspective. Oh, boom, there's Hivemapper. I can add one of those into my car. And so this kind of cross-pollination across these different participants and these builders is what makes the Solana ecosystem so special.
I want to get into some roadmap stuff with you, but before we go there, I want to talk about the device itself, because there's a couple of devices that you guys have. And is there any plans to continue the evolution of those devices and make them smaller? At some point, maybe an app that, you could just pop up your phone on a windshield mount. Is there anything in the works that would go that direction?
Definitely smaller is one that we're looking at 100%. Also improving some of the positioning technology inside the dash cam itself even further. It's quite good today, but I think there's room for improvement there. We probably will not go to a place where people can use their app. And we've tried this before, right? A lot of people say to us hey, why can't I use my iPhone or Android device? Okay. Yeah. And the reason for that is because the positioning technology inside of your iPhone and Android is not very good. That's number one. Number two is all of a sudden you're dealing with not standardized imagery, right? So you're dealing with imagery that looks a little bit different for this customer, for this Android, that iPhone, that's another issue. And the third thing is more basic, which is we've tried this before and the churn rates were incredibly high, right? Why? Because someone has to take their phone, right? Every single time, place it there, remove it, place it, remove it, and they just give up after a while. Yeah. And so with this dedicated device that's just there, you turn the car on, it starts to map, it does its thing. Your churn rates are much, much, much lower. So we're now averaging, I think it's 800 kilometers per driver per week, right? Like if you looked at our stats before when we supported the iPhone and Android device, it was abysmally low.
What are some of the big goals you guys are trying to achieve in 2024? What's next for you guys?
If we did nothing today, if we just like went on vacation in 2024, the map would continue to grow. And it just kind of has that momentum now. And so we want to do a couple of things a little bit differently is like, we want the map to grow at like, every week we want it to refresh in, let's say, New York or Paris or Chicago, right? One of these major regions. So that's number one. Number two is what most people have seen up until this point is that we've invested a ton in terms of all the tools and the capabilities for contributors. Now we're going to start to build all the tools and the capabilities to make it easier to use the map data for the B2B customers, right? Mm-hmm. And so we just launched something called Scout last week. There will be a lot more on this. And so really, all of those tools and capabilities, that are frankly a little bit more nascent today, we want to make them easier and easier to use so more and more customers can very quickly start to see value from the map and from all this data that is being generated by the community.
What about things like, if you were like reputation badges that would be like NFTs, you go into scenarios like, social screenshots, something that would almost gamify what's happening within the Hivemapper devices, connected to the app itself. Any plans to go that direction?
There's definitely some fun stuff related to Burst. So Burst, I think today is very, nascent, but this idea that like you're treasure hunting in a city, right? It's kind of fun. It's like you end up going to all these different neighborhoods and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. And so, that is definitely an area of focus for us, which is like, how do you take bursts, which are inherently very valuable to customers, right? And gamify them, to your point, where, there's Pokemon Go is an entire business around this, right?
Right.
I'm not sure we'll go that far, but I think there's something there that's really powerful, and we hear it from the community as well. And a lot of people just like to, clear their heads, drive for a half hour, 45 minutes, go to a new neighborhood, check it out. And so there is something that is very enjoyable about it as well.
What about streaming payments to users, the people who are out there, functioning within a Hivemapper ecosystem?
Like real time, like
real time, yeah. Real time streaming. Yeah. Anything on the roadmap there?
We're not doing streaming payments right now as a short version. So it's basically like you map for a week and then you get on Wednesday evening, you get rewarded. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. One is to fight potential fraud, right? But there's other reasons for that as well, because the rewards are based on how that region that you're in are progressing.
I have some questions that are a lineup of that, a lot of people we've pulled from both our tests, but also from Twitter and et cetera. All right, so does the camera map inside parking garages?
It does, partially.
I'm just thinking like Disney or somewhere like that, these massive, parking systems.
It will get the entrances and then the exits. And the reason for that is once you go underground or it's covered, then you probably lose GPS signal.
Yeah.
If you lose GPS signal, then we can't map.
All right. So do you earn less by not connecting to your phone to the device every day?
No.
So you're okay. So it's just storing up what it can, and then once you've connected, it downloads it. No penalty there on that. All right, so that's a good myth.
There is a fact, like if you don't upload in time for that week, right?
Okay.
Then you won't earn. But no, it is the short version.
What about the side view versus front view? Because this is something I've even tested with my car, and I've noticed there's some different scenarios that play out there. What are you guys doing in that function?
Yeah, so let's just talk about the reason the side one is supported. The side one is focused on what we refer to as stores and doors, right? We can see the name of the store, we can see the address a lot more clearly and so forth. My recommendation to people is like, look, if you're starting off with just one, just do it forward facing, okay? That is definitely the best. If you're then very eager and you get really into it, you also want to add a side facing one. You can add a side facing one. We generally tell, and you can see this in the Discord as well, is like you should not expect to earn 2x, right? It won't always be 2x. And
right.
it really does vary by a lot of factors.
What about the lane selection? So if you're in, whether you're on interstate or you're on, a boulevard style, would it be right lane, left lane? Any benefits there?
No, we don't care.
Okay.
Usually, especially the front one is wide enough that it can see all the relevant
Right.
lanes.
What about integration into something like Waze? I mean, you've got a very large network out there. The opportunity could be, obviously that's mostly been self-reporting, which helps with the live active data that feeds into most of these real-time units on mapping
Yeah.
systems. But I'm finding these to be less. I've tested both BMW, Mercedes, and also Tesla, mostly the high-end cars, because they have the live active systems where you can see the traffic control more real-time. But many cases, they're not accurate. So I revert to Waze, which is actually more accurate, or at least I feel like it is. Any possibility there?
I don't know. Waze is interesting. Like I think Waze is owned by Google for those people who don't know. And at a certain point, they're just going to be like, why do we have two different maps, right? Mm-hmm. And the cost associated with managing both of those and maintaining both of those is quite high. So I think Waze will probably be go away. But look, I think the interesting thing about having eyes is now, like if somebody says, hey, there's construction here. Really, you need 3 or 4 or 5 people to confirm that because you can't really trust it. Yeah. But with an image, the image doesn't lie, right? If the image is saying there's construction there is construction there. You don't have to wait for 3 or 4 or 5 people to confirm it, right? The same thing for flooding or the same thing for accidents. And so we believe that having eyes at these locations is a much more trustworthy than Waze, and then kind of waiting for people to say, yeah, this is actually true. This isn't bullshit.
Right.
Sorry, this is BS.
Okay, no problem. With that being the case, Ariel, you look at next year and the years coming with mapping, you kind of dream up Hivemapper's success, and it's really doing well. We're getting all kinds of, millions and billions of miles out there mapped into the system. What is one of the areas that you could see potentially utilizing this, especially on a use case, that would be outside the realm of people maybe looking at today? I mean, typical delivery, some aspect of real-time, construction warning scenarios like that, obviously for map usage. But is there a business-to-business case out there that maybe people aren't looking at that could be a huge opportunity in the future?
Well, look, the ADAS, right, the assisted driving capabilities like Ford Blue Cruise and others is very interesting for a couple of reasons. One is they need fresh maps, right, which we have. Number 2 is they actually, Ford that being, they can monetize those products. And they're demonstrating that consumers are willing to pay $800 per year for those capabilities, right? And so all of a sudden, that's a whole new market that didn't exist even 2 years ago, where there's a paid customer on the other side paying for this fresh data, right? And so that's in addition to all the existing type of customers, that we can go after today, like, in the logistics space or the mobility space or the insurance space. But yeah, if you look at like the typical B2B spenders on this, insurance, right? Anybody who business relies on the movement of cars and vehicles, right, in the road. So that's insurance, that's supply chain companies, obviously logistic companies, obviously transportation companies, obviously local governments, state, federal, et cetera. They all spend trillions upon trillions of dollars understanding and moving products and services, right? And so that is really the market that we play in. There's a lot of other parts of maps, right, that we all use for today, but like our focus is on what's happening at the ground level and how does it help people move from point A to point B safely, or how do we move products and services from point A to point B, and how do we do that safely?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm really excited about Hivemapper in the sense of just seeing what you guys do, because I love the burst concept. I think that was brilliant in the way that you've kind of put people to the front of the line in terms of being able to map an area. So I love that gamification side of it as well, which we're seeing more and more dApps really get good at using that, which I think eventually is going to just make adoption be so much faster for people. And obviously that's going to be the critical mass that you guys need to succeed. So good stuff for you. Ariel, we're definitely going to have you back. So thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, bet. All right, so you guys are maybe tuned in over on the podcast side of things. Make sure and jump over here to the YouTube channel. You get a chance to see a little bit more visual side of this. And I think this is one of those episodes that's a good example because you get a chance to really understand what Hivemapper is doing, but more importantly, how you can, really participate in the next era of what I think is going to be the new internet, which is Web3. And companies and projects like Hivemapper all riding on the Solana ecosystem. But there's other, projects out there that are doing great things as well. So if you want to listen and check out more of those, make sure and drop some comments down below because it's one of the great places that we get feedback from our viewership of understanding what you guys are watching out there. And we always love your input. So make sure and just hit those comments down below. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in now. It's really easy and simple. And of course, if you're not following me on Twitter, it's out there at Paul Barrett. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBath.